Shall we jump straight in?
Sure.
So, welcome, Scarlett, to the Martin Talk Show. Thank you so
Oh,
much
thank you for
for.
having me.
I'm really excited to speak to you. I speak to many creatives in different fields, but I've never spoken to a harpist before. So this is my.
Well, I'm honoured.
Is harpist the correct term? Have I used the correct terminology there?
Yeah, you have.
Wonderful. So yeah, the Bristol Harpist you're known as. So you're currently through halfway through a UK tour at the moment. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. It is my debut tour. So this show that I've made, called Any Objections, is a harp and comedy show. And so last year I took it to Brighton Fringe and Edinburgh Fringe festivals. And off the back of that, I'm now doing a UK tour that I'm halfway through. And it's great. It's so nice to be able to connect to new audiences and visit new places, and just watch the show like bloom into, yeah, kind of its final form, I guess. I've been slowly tweaking it over the
Are
last
you
year, and it
tweaking
feels
it
like
as you
it's
go
grown up.
along? And so is this a halfway point, or are you coming to the end of this particular show then?
As in a halfway point of the
So
show,
this is
of
halfway
the
point of the tour, but you're saying that you're molding this as you're going along. So yeah, where are you in that molding process? Do you feel like you've got a figure that you've worked something out creatively, and that's just where you're at with it now, and it's perfect?
That's such a good question. If you'd have asked me last year, I would have said that I thought that I would always be growing and always be changing. And I always, especially because it's comedy, I think there's so much as you're testing it with new audiences and getting people's reactions. It's like almost co-creating it, with the people who come to see the show and shaping and learning what people enjoy and what's working and what isn't working. Um, and so I kind of, in a way, thought that it would I'd always be tweaking. Maybe that's just my perfectionist nature. But actually, after the first few shows that I did, so I did a run of 3 nights at the Wardrobe Theatre in Bristol, at in the start of February. So I had quite a chunk of a lot of dates all quite close together in February, and now I've got a little bit of a break, and then a few dates in March and a few dates in April. And yeah, after the run in Bristol, I was like, oh no, I do think it feels settled. Like maybe a few minor things else we can change, but it does feel like, yeah, it's in its final. It's like my friend described it as, they were like, oh, it's like the show has grown up, which I think is quite nice.
That's amazing. So what does that feel like then to have it at that point? Because it sounds like you've been on quite a journey with this.
Yeah, it's really satisfying, to be honest, and it's quite. I don't know if reassuring is the right word, but I remember talking to someone else about like just the process of making art and the process of making shows, because this is the first like hour-long solo show that I've ever made. And I've made a fair amount of like ensemble work or been in shows that have been directed by other people in the past, but this is my own kind of creative baby. And I remember discussing with someone last year, and they were like, oh, well, there's that phrase that art is never finished, only abandoned.
Well, I like
And
that.
I think off the back of that, I was just like, oh, well, maybe it will never feel like complete. Maybe I will always be tweaking and changing. So it actually feels really satisfying to get it to a point where now every time I'm going out and performing it, I feel like I'm not just doing it in a way that I'm going, okay, what's working? I'm going, okay, how can I have fun with it? How can I have fun and play with the audiences and play with the energy in the room? And whereas where are all of the little fun, unique things that I can like pull out and cherish with each show and each like in because it is quite a playful show. Um, and yeah, what different energy is each audience going to bring in each different place? Yeah.
How are you merging? I'm trying to picture the show because, of course, I haven't seen it. I'm hoping that I will get a chance to see it. I know that you're coming to London in April,
Mm.
and so I'm trying to picture how the two things, how the harp and the comedy combined. Of course, I've seen clips and I've seen little bits on social media, but I'm
Mm.
really trying to picture how you're pulling these two things together because it's quite a unique thing that you're doing here, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Um, it's funny you should say that because I performed it in Poole last Saturday at the Lighthouse, which is a lovely, lovely theatre. Feel very lucky to have got to take the show there. But I was chatting to some of the people who came along afterwards, and quite a few of them said like, "Oh, we didn't really know what to expect, but we're so glad we came because we had a wonderful time." Which I always find interesting because I think, and maybe it's just because I know the show, I think if you read the blurb, if you watch the trailer, then I'm like, oh, I think you'll get a pretty good
You'll
sense
get
of
a
it.
sense.
But when I first started making the show, so I first started making it in 2023, late 2023, I think. In all honesty, I didn't know exactly what I wanted it to be. I just knew I wanted to make a harp and comedy show and to figure out how those different art forms could work together because they aren't things that you would normally integrate. But a lot of my degree at university was learning about like integrating different art forms. And so it was and I knew, like, I think when you think of musical comedy, you tend to think of someone playing an instrument, maybe a keyboard, a piano, and singing kind of comical songs with funny lyrics.
Yes. Yes,
And there is a
my
bit of that.
mind goes to kind of like the Tim Minchin type stuff.
Yeah, classic
I
kind of
just
like
yeah, I
Tim
discovered him
Minchin,
quite
maybe
early.
Bill Bailey,
Yes.
maybe Bo Burnham, if you know, because he's been fairly big recently with the
Yeah, he
Netflix
has.
special
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. But a lot of kind of just like comedy songs with comedy lyrics. And I knew I wanted some of that in the show, but I didn't want it to be exclusively that. And I wanted to try and play around with, because a lot of the music that my day job is playing at weddings. I'm a wedding musician, and so I play a lot of kind of like pop and modern music on the harp that isn't lyrical or isn't, I wouldn't sing at the weddings. And so I wanted to kind of figure out how can music integrate with comedy? Like, how can I either set up a joke with my words and then create the punchline that is the music, or how can I use the music to kind of create this setup that I then create a comical punchline with my words? And also, because my harp is electro-acoustic, I use it with a multi-effects pedal and a loop pedal, and so this really helps in the show because it means that I can do more things at once and I can record and loop in some music. And then as I'm telling stories or telling little anecdotes, I can then bring the music back in without having to completely go and set it up from scratch again or go back to the harp, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does completely. This sounds really. I think you mentioned a little bit earlier that this is like a baby to you that's grown, and it really does sound like a real passion project that you thought a lot
Yeah.
about constructing how this is going to come together. So where did this idea start? This putting on this one person show with your harp. Where was the beginning?
Oh, oh man, I remember about, so I'm 28 now. I remember 8 years ago sitting down with a partner at the time, and we were making like goal lists of like, oh, it sounds so silly. Not so silly.
It's,
I was going
it,
to say sounds so
do you
wanky.
know what? It's not silly. I've got my goal list right here.
Oh, great. We are kindred
Like,
spirits
like
here.
I'm doing it this evening. Like I'm 41 and I'm still writing a goal list and a dream list.
I mean, I say that I still make one every year.
Yeah,
I think
we've got
it's
to,
just
haven't we?
we've got to do it. It's how you make stuff happen.
Hey, yeah.
And so yeah, 8 years ago, I was making a list of like 30 things I wanted to achieve before I was 30. Look back over this like every year, and I've abandoned so many of them because life
Of course.
changes and you change priorities. But I remember writing, I'd like to make a solo show. I'm not quite sure what I want that to be, but I know I want, because at the time had just graduated from studying at Circa Media, which is a university in Bristol where you can do a degree in contemporary circus and physical theatre. I don't do a lot of circus these days, but it did teach me a lot. I did study clowning and stand-up, which I do use while at this degree. And so, yeah. Wait, I feel like I've got off track.
University.
University. I think the point that I was trying to loop back to was I'd kind of spent a lot of time learning to devise work and learning to make like very niche, interesting, creative work, or I'd like to think interesting.
Was it interesting to you?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
That's
all that matters. Yeah.
And I think so. The turning point for me was maybe 6 years ago. I went to see another show at the Wardrobe Theatre, where I started my tour this year. And it was by a performer called, I think her name was Faye Tracy. And she was a trombonist, and she had a comedy trombone show. And she had a loop pedal. And at the time I was like, and I hadn't even started using a loop pedal at this point, or moving into like electro-acoustic music. But I was like, whoa, this is so clever. I would love to make something like this one day. Didn't touch the idea for maybe 4 or 5 years, but it just lingered in the back of my mind.
Sat there.
Just growing, brewing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, having spent a couple of years going up to the Edinburgh Fringe as a punter, then after spending a week there seeing like maybe 30, 35 shows in August 2023, I was like, right, now is the time. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it.
Yes.
And so I started making this show with the goal, because, we've talked about how we like to like to be accountable. And so I had this goal that I would make the show and take it to Edinburgh Fringe in 2025, because I was like, it's going to take me at least 2 years to make a show that I feel excited and ready enough to take to such a big festival. And then after Edinburgh Fringe, if I'm still enjoying it, maybe I'll take it on tour. And here we are.
And here we are. So I want to go back. There's quite a few things I want to go to in what you just said there. But one of the things, first of all, is I love that thing about ideas and how they sit at the back of the head and they work away. And because I was thinking about that recently, about how I'm at this point in my life at the moment where there's ideas that I had 10, 15 years ago that I had no way of doing anything with the idea.
Yeah.
That now I'm in a position that these ideas can start to come to fruition. And it was like I didn't know how to make anything happen all that time ago. But it took such a long time, and now it's like the time to start watering the idea and start growing that seed and that into something. And I just find it amazing how they can just sit there for such a long time until they're ready.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? There's a book, I'm trying to remember who it's by, a book called Big Magic. I can't remember the name.
Eat, Pray, Love. I've read the book.
Yes, you know
yes.
it?
Of course I know. I know it, and I also hold on. Why can't I think who wrote it? She wrote Eat, Pray, Love as well.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, I gave the book to the person that's my producer on my podcast when she joined me on the podcast because it was so relevant.
I was like, I think I've got it on my bookcase.
Have you? Come on, we can't.
Elizabeth Gilbert.
Elizabeth Gilbert. Yeah, I love the book. I've given it as a present to people.
And I definitely read it like 5-6 years ago, so I might butcher the ideas now.
Of course.
I'm sure she talks about the fact that like this concept that you're not coming up with the ideas are just like coming through you from the universe. And as a creative, as an artist, it is not your job to necessarily judge whether the ideas are good. It is just your job to help birth them into the world. And I think sometimes these ideas arrive and they arrive and you're like, yes, I'm ready to bring this into the world now. But sometimes they're not quite ready. You're not ready, or the world is not ready for them. And so then they can linger and grow in the back of your mind until you're finally like,
until
yes, now is
the
the time is
time is
right, and I
right.
can do this justice.
And it goes into in the book as well about how ideas are perhaps out there in the universe and other people are getting the same ideas at the same time, and perhaps we need to meet at a certain moment for us to be able to give birth to the ideas, because maybe it isn't down to just us alone within this creative pursuit that we're doing. Have you found that then with your show? Have you found that there's been any key magical moments that have pushed you forward?
Yeah, there definitely have. I'm trying to think off the top of. I mean, I remember. I think I feel so lucky to have like being able to bring this show into the world in Bristol, because there have been so many lovely opportunities of places where I could kind of like water the seeds and let it slowly grow. And like I was saying with comedy earlier, I think it can take a little while for it to find its feet, and for you to figure out what's working and what's not. And that often has to be done in front of people. And it can be hard to tell whether something's going to work until you try it out. And so I've had some like really lovely moments of trying bits. There's a specific organization who run or company that run scratch nights and open mic nights in Bristol called Owl on the Roof, and I've had some like really like wonderful moments of like testing work there and having like really warm responses to it. I also remember when I first debuted the show at the Wardrobe Theatre back in January of 2020. That would be the right year. So
Last
before
year.
I took it to Brighton, before I took it to Edinburgh, I did it for 2 nights in Bristol. And this was the first time that I did it properly, like as a whole show. And I remember, like, I'd not even invited them, but someone from a lovely guy called Danny from Take Art came along. And if you haven't heard of Take Art, then they are a rural touring agency based in Somerset. So they find artists like me and companies, and they say, hey, we want to help you tour your show to these rural places that might not normally have access to the kind of culture that you get in big cities. And yeah, that felt like quite a magical moment for me to have someone else be like, yes, we want to help you
We
take
want to
your
be
show to
part
other
of.
people. And what else to say? I'm sure I had another thought.
I was wondering about the Edinburgh Fringe, because to me the Edinburgh Fringe is such a. I've been twice the last 2 years, and that was such a magical place for me, the Edinburgh Fringe. That it was for me going to there made things that I was doing make sense. It pulled all the strings of what I've been working on, and it was like a special moment that first time that I went there. And it was I got a recharge the second time that I went there. And I think it's something to do with the amount of creative people that you have in one space at one time.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Were you taking work there, or were you going to
I took the
You
podcast
took the
there.
podcast. Oh, amazing.
With the podcast, took it out onto the streets, went to see shows and talked to people after their shows.
I'm
It
sad we didn't
was.
run into each other.
No, I know. I feel, and I've met so many. Like in both the last 2 years that I went, I only stayed for a week, And within that week, I would meet so many wonderful people
Mm,
as well. And it was almost like I was meeting a group of people that would then go on to be part of my life for the rest of the year coming. And I still have good
yeah,
connections with many of those people as well.
that's so true, actually. I think I have, in all honesty, I think I have like mixed feelings and memories about Edinburgh Fringe. Like,
It's
obviously,
hard. It's
it is
hard.
hard work.
It's a hard work, Like
It
I
is
talk
like,
about how lovely it is, but
but it's
like
also
it.
hard work.
Yeah, it is a real. You've got to love what you do for it to be a success.
Yeah. Uh, and I like didn't have any kind of funding to go and do it. I couldn't afford PR at the time. And so almost all of the advertising that I did for the show was through busking with the harp. And so I would take the harp out onto the streets, I would play music. My partner Joey, who has helped direct the show and tech to the show while we were in Edinburgh, and has teched it a few times on tour as well. He would then like hand out flyers to people who were coming by, and so I'd have so many like lovely interactions with people who would just like come and have a sit and have a listen as well. But I think spending like 2 to 3 hours a day like playing music and then going on and performing the show and then trying to find the energy to go and see other people's shows, yeah, it was wiped me out.
Yeah.
And then I came straight back in September and went straight
Was
into
it?
like hectic wedding season.
Do you
So
think though
busy,
that the
busy summer.
hard work was worth it? Did you get something
Oh,
from that?
100%. 100%.
And it's slightly, and I guess like you said, it's slightly different from a musician to a normal performer, because
Mm,
a lot of the plays, they won't be doing their play on the street, they'll just be handing out the leaflet. But
yeah.
you're taking the harp onto the street of Edinburgh,
Yeah.
and you're playing throughout the day and then to do a performance in the evening.
Yeah.
There's a
Uh,
lot of energy spent there.
yeah. And I didn't take the big harp. So I used the big harp, which you can see just out the corner.
Oh, we got the harp.
The big harp!
We got the harp.
um, I didn't take the big harp out onto the streets. That stayed in my theatre, and then I had a smaller electric harp that I took out onto the streets. But yeah, it was weirdly, it wasn't actually just the kind of standing and playing music, or it wasn't the playing the music that felt so tiring. It was just being stood in a single place for like 2 to 3 hours.
Yes.
I remember my legs and my ankles were just, oh, I'm sure it's taken years off me.
Yeah.
But like you said, it opened so many doors for me and was such a good opportunity to just like train my craft as well. And just, yeah, really tighten up the show. And learn about like how to bring the energy, especially in a solo show where you are. And I think my show, the feedback I get is that it's a relatively high energy show and it slowly gets more chaotic throughout the hour. And so trying to bring that into a room feels often different. And it's at the Fringe, so someday at Edinburgh Fringe, some days you'll have a full house, and some days you'll have 5, 6 people, and you still have to bring full energy to the show. And because all of these people who've like paid for a ticket to come see your show deserve to see the best version of the show that they can.
Do you find it? How do you find that energy again then within that moment?
For me, it's really trying to like be in the present moment as much as I can. And that partially comes from just having done the show, however, well, I don't even know, however many times that I have now. But really thinking about like what I'm saying as I'm saying it, and looking at people and looking at their reactions and being like, what am I getting from the audience? And how can I respond to that? And how can I like try and tailor the energy of the show to the people that are here, in a way.
Staying with the magic thing that we've been speaking about and that connection to
Mm.
energy, do you believe that there is something more going on when we're in that space together? I know I certainly do. I know from my background in performing and acting, when I was on the stage and being in that space in that moment, there was a connect, and sometimes it would feel different, and you would know when it felt different, but it definitely felt like a special place.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely like, it's such a unique connection, isn't it? That you have when you're on stage and performing, sharing work, whether it's theatre, whether it's comedy. I want to say whether it's music as well. But especially when you're performing something where you're having eye contact. And because a lot of the content of the show, or a lot of the content of my show, is kind of like stand-up-y orientated, I am looking at people a lot, and I am making eye contact with people and delivering the show to them. And so I think there, if you are like from a hippie spiritual energy point of view, I definitely think like there's energy like flowing from whoever's performing into the people who are coming to experience it. And I think that's interesting as well, because I think sometimes when I'm performing the show, I feel like the people who have come to see it have slightly higher walls up than other times. Sometimes I'll get into the room and I'll immediately know, okay, everyone's here to have a good time. And other times I'll perform it and be like, oh, we're a bit nervous. People are not quite sure, because you've come to see a harp comedy show. You don't know what that's going to be.
Can you
I
get
think
that sense before anything's said?
I don't. I'd love to say yes, I do, but that would be a lie. No, I don't think I do. Sometimes I'll get a little sense if I'm like in the wings and I can hear people before the show. Sometimes I can hear that it's like a particularly like chatty Saturday night crowd where everyone's like come to have a drink and everyone's like ready to have a good time. And sometimes and my Edinburgh Fringe slot as well was at 4 o'clock. So I
That's a
can
hard one.
really tell the difference. Now, having done a lot of 4 p.m. shows and a lot of like 8 p.m. shows, I'm like, oh, they do feel
Yes.
different.
Yeah, and there might be some science in this as well. I know from doing, I used to do a lot of children's theatre, and we would do an 11 o'clock show and a 3 o'clock show. Now, the 3 o'clock show would always be better because the children would have had lunch. They'd have
Yeah.
eaten. Do you know, like, so their metabolism would be better, their moods would be better. They wouldn't be, that 11 o'clock. They'd be thinking about, by then they'd be thinking about, I want lunch now. But it would make a significant difference to what the whole performance was like.
But it's been such an interesting like learning curve for me as well, because like for a long time, a lot of the work, or my day job, as I said, is like playing the harp at weddings, and so the kind of interactions that I get with my audience per se are very, very different to an 8 p.m. comedy show where everyone's a little bit drunk. And so I'm remembering like one specific night at the start of this tour when I was in Bristol. And there is a couple of points in the show where I need a little bit of help. And so I asked like, oh, can I have a volunteer to just help with this little thing, on this little demonstration that I'm going to do on stage? And this guy came up clearly wasted. And I was like, it's all right, we'll carry on. And then like throughout the show, him and this group of friends at the back of the room would just slowly start heckling. And I don't mind a heckle. I quite like an occasional heckle in the show, because a heckle is an
Of course,
opportunity.
yeah.
It's like,
You
oh,
can
I can have a
do so. You
play.
can
We can
play.
have a little bit of a chat. It got to the point at this Bristol show where they'd interrupted like 4 or 5 times. It got to like the 4th or 5th time, and I was like chatted to them, and then was like, right, okay, we do need to get on with the show now, though, because these people have come to see the whole show, like, and it is quite a fairly tightly written show. So whilst there are moments to play, I'm also like, if we add in too much filler, everyone's gonna get to the end of the show and be desperate for a wee. And so I was like, right, we need to get on with it. And so I kind of got to the point where I was like, right, I'm just going to shut you down now because you've interrupted enough. We're going to carry on with the show. And then still like 5 to 10 minutes later, they interrupted again in another pit. And I like went to deal with them. And then this other woman from across the room just yelled and was like, shut up. And it was hilarious. But I was like, oh, it is interesting, because I think I could have predicted it was going to be, this is coming back to your original question of like, can you tell what the audience is going to be like before you've even said anything? And I definitely remember before that show listening from backstage and being like, oh, okay, this is going to be a fun crowd. Like, there is energy. They are already bringing so much energy, and so the energy I have to bring is then a little bit different.
You have to
They're
adjust
all
to
quite quiet and like a bit nervous about what they're coming to see. Then yeah, I feel like I bring a lot more energy to kind of like get people on board.
And I guess that's the type of thing that you can't learn at university. You can't learn that in school. The only way you're going to discover that kind of dealing with the audience is by going to something like a festival, is to get out there in the world and experience things like that. No matter how hard they are, that's what's going to develop you as a creative.
Sure.
So what's the show look like going forward then from this? So you've got this tour that you're halfway through at the moment. Are you going back to Edinburgh this year? Are you going anywhere else next?
I'm not going back to Edinburgh this year. I did think about it, but in all honesty, I'm still so tired from last year. And so I was just, and also financially, I just don't think I can afford to go again this year. I was incredibly fortunate in a way that I could go busking with the harp every day, and so people were very nice and very generous in terms of busking donations, and so that made the like financial impact of taking financial impact of taking a show to the Fringe less. But
because it's quite hard to get
50%, over 50% of my tickets for the whole run, which when the average Edinburgh audience is, I think, 3 people, I still ended up losing some money, and I just can't afford to do that again this year. But in terms of the show, I'm not 100% sure. I'm open to doing it more after this tour, and so I'm not 100% definitely putting it to bed. But I also have other ideas.
Okay.
The other ideas are brewing.
The other ideas are brewing away.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a summer of weddings and like regaining some financial stability, resting, because I think as an artist having periods of rest is also so important, and having periods where we're creating for ourselves and like creating behind closed doors and like reinvesting time and energy into like the creative process before we then get ready to share stuff out in the world. But that can be a challenge in this day and age where we have things like social media that is just like We need constant
Constantly,
content.
constantly going, constantly, constantly
Yeah.
asking for that attention, or things start to drift away. Someone actually said to me recently, Martin, you need to slow down. And I was like, I can't, because I feel like this thing that I'm creating is snowballing, and if I
Yeah.
stop now, I have to start again,
Uh-huh.
and I don't, and it's such a hard thing for us to do as creatives, isn't it? For us to, especially when we're linking our finances into that as well. When we're
Yeah.
saying the thing that we're doing creatively is also the thing that we're doing for our income. If it was
Mm.
just, if the creative thing was more of a hobby, I think that's easier to put to one side and put down for a moment. So how do you
But the fact
find
that it's your
space then?
livelihood
Mm.
is harder. Sorry, you were going to ask a question, weren't you?
Yeah, how do you find space? How do you find that moment?
Oh, I'm still figuring out. At the
Yeah.
moment, it looks like being like, right. I feel like every year, I think I'm doing a better job of it. Every year, I'm like, okay, I'm having better boundaries. I am making sure I don't take on too much work because if you're anything like me, then you are working more than you probably should be. And
Well,
so,
this is why we're both here on a Friday night,
yeah,
isn't it? There's
having done
something
a
to
full
that.
day of work, quickly eat some dinner, then hop on a podcast.
Yeah, there's something to
Um,
that, isn't there?
but I think honestly, it is just learning to have good boundaries with myself. Also, for me, it's being quite organized and learning to be very realistic with, okay, how much time does this work actually take me? Because I've spent quite a few years being like, I can do this in an hour, and then realizing that it takes me more than an hour, and that's okay. I just need to pre-plan that catching up on my admin is not going to happen in 30 minutes. It will take 2 to 3 hours every Monday morning after the weekend. And so I need to schedule in that time, and also like allot in time, like properly writing into my calendar, like, right, this is a day off, this is time off, and you're not going to book work. And even today, I got a wonderful email about doing the show somewhere in the summer, and they wanted me to do it on a Saturday, and I was like, oh, the only Saturdays that I have left are ones that I'm meant to be when I'm meant to be on holiday. So what am I going to do about that? And so today, that looked like for me going, you know what, I might be able to do. If you want a Saturday, I might be able to do this time, but I'm not going to be able to confirm that until nearer the time when I have a better grasp on where my energy levels are at after tour, and
I think
also just
creatives,
taking
we're
proper time off afterwards.
uh, uh, if I think back to when I was younger, I think I was, if I think back to when I was doing acting at college, a lot of the advice was just always say yes to
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think we should grab opportunities where we can, but literally that, where we can. It doesn't have to
Yeah,
be every single yes. We can
yeah.
take it. We can say, sometimes it could sound really nice, and it could move us along in a better direction. But if we're going to lose our energy, and maybe our work is actually going to suffer as well by saying
Mm,
yes, then that's where we need to learn to say no.
yeah, saying no is so important. So important. And I think, yeah, similarly, I've had with you being this experience of just being told to always say yes and always take whatever opportunities come your way. And it's taken me a while to learn that actually the first opportunities to come your way are not necessarily the best opportunities to come your way. And sometimes saying no to something that doesn't quite feel right to you means that it leaves space for the right thing to then have the space when it comes along. And
Takes time to find that judgment, doesn't it?
oh
I think
yeah,
I think
it's
for
very
me,
easy to say, harder to
it
do.
it is. I think for me, I had to go through all them things of saying yes to things that didn't suit me, and
Mm,
suffering through them, You know, someone
Mm,
once offered me, I don't do acting anymore, but I do, it was a big part of my life. And someone offered me an opportunity to work on a film once and a
yeah.
part, but as long as I was also the taxi driver. And then it was
Mm,
like a 1 day part for like 2 lines, and then the next 3 weeks I was taxiing, and I was like, this isn't fair.
yeah.
And I went, but I'd said yes too quickly because I
Oh,
was too excited. I even think back, like, this is like nearly 15, 20 years ago now, and I think back to it and I'm like, what a mug. Like, but I was so like, oh yes, opportunity, like, oh, I'm going to meet people, but
mm,
it didn't do anything for me creatively. It didn't do anything for
yeah.
my career.
But you have to, or maybe you don't have to, but I think in our experience, clearly, we've had to
Yeah.
say yes to it. So many of these opportunities that have allowed us to learn, oh, actually,
This isn't for
uh,
me.
this isn't for me. Um, and not everyone who wants access to your energy should be allowed access to you, I don't think.
So
Um,
true.
yeah, our energy is our like most important resource as human
That
beings.
we should hold it quite, we should be sacred with it. We should hold it, we
Yeah,
should we should be precious with it. And I
yeah,
do feel this as I'm getting older, as my energy, I kind of hit 40, and then my energy levels were less. So, you know, which is going to happen. So it's like, well, of course I've got to be more protective over my energy.
yeah.
Of course I've got to say no more often to things.
Mm.
So for you then, Scarlett, at this point in the conversation, I often like to go to a bit of a hypothetical. And
Ooh, sure.
on this podcast, we can actually go time traveling. And I was wondering, where, with everything that we've spoke about and all the experiences that we've got, where in your life would you like to go back to, if we could go back there now?
Ooh, oh.
We can just dial it in, like, you know, we're on Riverside. Boop, 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 boop. Where should we go?
I was scanning through my life and my brain, and I was like, oh, this is an idea. And I was like, is there anything better? I'm like, no, that is, if this is the first thing you've thought of, Scarlett, that is where we should go. When I was maybe 16, because I also, like you, used to do a lot more theatre, and I was the epitome of a theatre kid growing up. And I did a project with Hampshire Youth Theatre when I was maybe 16. And I remember at the start of the process, we filled out a form, and one of the questions was like, "Oh, what kind of role would you like? What do you feel like you're maybe not necessarily your strengths are now, but like, what would you like to practice and grow into the next project?" And I remember writing on the form that I would like to do comedy. I would like to play a more comedy-centered role. And I was not cast in a comedy centre role. They were like, "Oh, she plays the harp, we'll make her the angel. Great,
Of
easy."
course.
We're
Everyone
not
else
going to
has got
make her
another
practice to
idea.
do comedy. Because I did quite a lot. I've been playing the harps ever since I was 7, and so I've done a fair amount of like acting musician work over the years. And I would love to go back to little 16-year-old Scarlett and be like, "Your comedy time will come. Your comedy time will come." Uh, and yeah, just kind of.
Within that reassurance that you give yourself, that, you know, you're reassuring your younger self that your time
Mm.
will come, would you have any advice to move her forward?
Ooh, I'm sure there are things that I could say, but in all honesty, I've never really been someone. I've always been like, I don't have many regrets because I'm happy where I am now. And I think, like, everything that's happened to me on my journey has taught me to be the person I am today, and has fueled me and has given me the kind of like courage and wisdom and competence to build the life I have now. And I feel so lucky and so fortunate to have built a life that I love. And that doesn't mean that I don't have hardships, and I don't sometimes work too much and sometimes feel overwhelmed and very stressed. But generally, I'm very happy with where I am. And so there are things I could say to my younger self of like, oh, just have the confidence, you'll get there. Like, don't let anyone else tell you what to do, be who you are. On all of this like empowerment, but she'll get there, and she'll get there in her own time. And I don't think I necessarily would want to say anything to her that kind of like made in any kind of like attempt to get me to move faster or accomplish things sooner.
We already said that we need to go through these hardships, don't we? We need to go through some of these struggles to get to the place that we are now. And it sounds to me as well like you've managed to find yourself a place of gratitude in life.
Oh
Where
yeah,
yes,
for sure.
everything's perfect. You're still working on stuff, but that gratitude is put you in a good space with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So as we jump back in the time machine now, this is my big question. Yeah, bip bip bip. We're diving. This is my
You
big
wanted the
question.
sound
Like,
effects, right?
we need the sound effects. Yeah, like we're going future now, and this question is
Ooh.
one that I ask everyone, and it's a big one, and I'm trying to. I think this is part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is to ask this question, and so. My question is, as we go to the future, how do we make this a better world?
I think maybe linking to what I was saying earlier, trying to find slowness. I think we all move so quickly that these days that we don't always have time to reflect on what's happening. Or like you were saying, like you often say yes to things before you've fully thought them through. And so I think the world would be at least a slightly less problematic place if we all just took a little bit longer in doing things and really thought through like how is what I'm about to do like going to impact on the other people around me, on the world, and yeah, just a little bit more time for reflection and also time to like just be still and notice and look and appreciate the small joys that surround us. And that's not to say that there is not conflict and problems still in the world that need addressing, but me as my small little artist, I think the message that I'm trying to share like through this show is try as best you can to like find the moments of silliness and find the moments of joy where you can, because if you are bringing like warm, positive, silly energy into your life and fostering that within yourself, that is the energy that you're going to be putting out into the world. And I think the world needs a little bit more of that.
I believe that we resonate and we can find that within that stillness, within that pause, that we can find the right energy that the world needs. And it sounds to me like, Scarlett, if I come to see your show, I'm going to pick up on the right energy.
Oh, well, I hope you can
So,
make it.
yeah, I do look forward to it. So as we wrap up this conversation, Scarlett, it has been such a joy speaking to you. I've really enjoyed it this evening.
Oh, it's been a joy to speak to you too, Martin. Thank you for having
Wonderful.
me.
Oh, thank you. So where do we find your show then? Where do we find you, Scarlett?
Well, if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook at Bristol Harpist. My website is also bristolharpist.co.uk. There's a tab on there with all of my tour dates. The next tour dates I have are this little run of 3 dates with Take Art, the Somerset Rural Touring Scheme. So I'll be in Langport, Curry Mallet, and Pencilwood. I hope I'm saying those places correctly. On the 12th, 13th, and 14th of March, I'll then be in Aldershot at the West End Centre on March 20th, Western Supermare at the Front Room Theatre on April the 11th, and London at the Drayton Arms Theatre on April the 12th and 13th.
Wonderful. Well, I'll be sure to add links in the comments below so that people can catch your show. And thanks again, Scarlett. And also thank you if anyone was watching or listening to this conversation.
Yeah.
We appreciate you for joining us. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Bye-bye.